Though my father-in-law is in his 50s, anyone who lays eyes on him would confidently assert that he has yet to reach 45. The sun-kissed skin, the hair adorned with reeds, bestow upon him an aura of seasoned wisdom rather than mere age. His gaze, a blend of a gatherer and a contender, perpetually accompanies him, as if life itself were a game in which he claims every victory. Since my mother-in-law passed away over 5 years ago, he has been flitting from place to place, moving from one woman to another like a butterfly in the bloom of spring. In the town, whispers abound that wherever he directs his gaze, a bullet follows, and no woman can withstand his allure. I'm uncertain whether it's his deliberate and masculine manner of speaking, the confidence with which he carries himself, or the reputation that follows him. It's intriguing, really, how I've always come across whispers suggesting that he is a man who possesses not just a certain quality, but also the skill to wield it effectively, if you catch my drift. I, for my part, had never found it necessary to ascertain the veracity of those rumors. Or at least, that was my belief until that nagging spark of curiosity started to prick at me, nudging my thoughts each time he strode by with his assured gait, that shirt casually undone, revealing his robust and sun-kissed torso. Perhaps it is due to my husband, still in the bloom of youth, appearing to have grown weary of certain aspects. Perhaps it is simply that, in my experience, fire has never posed an issue. What am I, and how can I express it without coming across poorly? For me, the perfect scenario would involve the art of enjoying breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There I sat in the living room, an open book resting in my hands, its pages untouched, merely a facade for my retreat. The afternoon heat enveloped the surroundings, prompting the chicharras to serenade the day, while the air wafted through the window, carrying the scents of parched earth and blooming jasmine. The unmistakable sound of the key turning in the front door reached my ears, and I recognized it as my father-in-law's arrival. I recognized it in the way he strides, each step deliberate and unhurried, as though he possesses an unwavering belief that all he desires in life will patiently await his arrival. "Good afternoon," he remarked, placing the keys on the wooden table with a crisp clatter. As I gazed upward, I discovered myself enveloped in the warmth of his smile. Clad in a crisp white linen shirt, its sleeves casually rolled to the elbows, I paired it with jeans that hugged my form perfectly. The air was thick with the scent of a wooden colony, a lingering essence that remained long after its inhabitants had departed. "Good afternoon," I responded to him, deliberately closing the book with a measured slowness. He poured himself a glass of wine, pausing momentarily as he raised it to his lips before taking a sip. From my vantage point, I watched him. Every movement exuded a confidence that was innate, not acquired. "How is life unfolding for you?" he inquired, his gaze fixed on me, those eyes appearing to decipher more than I was prepared to reveal. I gently caressed my lips, perhaps it's a reflection of myself, occasionally, to varying degrees. I replied with a subtle smile, toying with the hem of my dress. His eyebrows lifted, suggesting he had grasped a deeper meaning in my words. He placed the glass on the table with a resounding thud, sprawled out on the sofa with his usual nonchalance, and regarded me with a tranquility that made my skin crawl. In that instant, I sensed that curiosity resembled a ravenous beast. Once stirred, it refuses to remain a mere observer from the shadows. I chose to leave matters as they were, and I rose to attend to my affairs. This morning, as I engaged in a gentle stretch, I readied my hands for the inevitable task of tackling the towering pile of dirty dishes that lay in wait. Outside, the midday sun bore down relentlessly on the sheet roof, and the heat caused the kitchen walls to appear as if they were inhaling and exhaling. The charred scent of coffee lingered in the air, intertwining with the lingering sweetness of bread that remained on the table from breakfast. In that moment, I caught the unmistakable sound of the lock yielding, succeeded by the eerie creak of the main door as it swung open. Initially, I didn't think much of it. I assumed my father-in-law had simply stepped out to run an errand, and now he was returning as he always did, his gait steady and measured. Yet a faint murmur, nearly a whisper, sent a shiver across my skin. I focused my attention as I set the plate I held down onto the stack. A sudden flutter gripped my heart as I distinctly caught the sound of two voices in the room. I approached the kitchen door, my gaze barely meeting theirs as they regarded me with caution, and there I saw them. My father-in-law had just arrived, accompanied by a young woman. She appeared to be no older than 25, and at first glance, he seemed to be at least twice her age, if not more. Her attire consisted of a striped blouse paired with a light skirt, accentuating the length and tan of her legs. Her hair cascaded in gentle waves over her shoulders, and her expression held a delicate balance between anxiety and restrained feeling. I remained silent, choosing instead to conceal myself behind the wall, my fingers gripping the apron tightly as I observed the scene unfold. My father-in-law had long been known for his wandering ways with women, yet in all the years I had known him, I had never witnessed him bring anyone home until now. He cast a cautious glance down the hall, ensuring the path was clear of any onlookers. With a resolute gesture, he grasped the young woman's hand and guided her toward her room. I remained motionless, for what coursed through me was not amazement. It was something altogether different. A sensation akin to astonishment, yet infused with a spark of fervent inquiry. A curiosity stirred within me, compelling me to unravel the enigma surrounding this man. What secret he possessed that caused women to surrender to him so effortlessly? And above all, despite my resistance to the notion, that very mystery began to weave itself into the fabric of my thoughts. I removed my apron without a second thought, letting it drape over the back of a chair. With trembling hands, I pressed the iron against my skirt, swallowed hard, and crept quietly into the hallway. The atmosphere within the house was thick, suffused with a palpable tension, steeped in an anticipatory hush. I advanced cautiously, my body brushing against the wall just shy of the entrance to his room. You may not even notice my presence. I caught the sound of the girl's voice, merely a restless whisper in the air. The audacity of the moment became increasingly evident, turning against him. "There's no need for concern," my father-in-law replied in that calm and composed tone he always employed to soothe the tumultuous waves. "It seems my daughter-in-law is likely engaged in the task of washing clothes, and as long as we maintain a certain level of quiet, all remains well. I am the proud owner of this house." A stillness enveloped the air, followed by a sigh held within. "To ease your mind," he said, "I'll check on what you're up to and return shortly. Stay right where you are." My heart shifted. In an instant, I pivoted on my heels and dashed as silently as possible toward the patio, where the sink awaited. The water continued its relentless drip from the poorly shut tap while the sun bore down mercilessly upon the scorching tiles. I bent over the heap, my hands plunging into the frigid water, seeking to soothe the wild thrum of my heart. The sun descended upon the patio, casting a warm glow, while the heat enveloped the space, thick and sticky, reminiscent of molten honey in the air. I adjusted my blouse slightly and leaned over the mound of laundry, a collection of garments from the day before awaiting my attention. The scent of the soap powder intertwined with the dampness of the cement as I poured the water and mixed it with my hands. The water's relentless crash against the stone shattered the stillness, a solitary sound in the quietude. Just as I was on the verge of plunging a garment into the frothy depths, I caught the sound of footsteps drawing near. The familiarity of the presence was unmistakable, rendering any need to glance back unnecessary. The deliberate, measured pace, each step carrying a subtle weight, is one I would identify without hesitation. "Ah, it's a pleasure to see you," my father-in-law remarked, his deep voice resonating with a blend of authority and assurance. I raised my gaze with an air of feigned nonchalance, twisting a damp cloth between my fingertips. "I was hoping you might be able to assist me with something. Could you please pick up a few things I need if you venture out later?" "Indeed, father-in-law. I assumed you had already departed, as your absence at breakfast caught my attention. I seized the moment to observe you more closely." He donned a sailboat-owned linen shirt that reached the midpoint of his chest, the sun-kissed hue of his skin starkly contrasting with the pristine white of the fabric. His hair, adorned with a few silver strands, had a gentle wave to it, as though it had just emerged from slumber. "Have you just risen from your slumber, dear father-in-law?" He ran a hand along his neck, releasing a deep sigh. "Indeed, I found myself on the brink of sleeplessness last night. It left me with a touch of insomnia." "Oh, dear father-in-law, what could possibly lead you to believe that is the reason for your sleepless nights?" I remarked with a soft chuckle, gripping the fabric gently between my fingers. He regarded me for a moment, his half-smile lingering, not quite fully formed, as though he were weighing my words before responding. "Picture this. 5 years spent in solitude," he remarked, his voice carrying the weight of a confession rather than a mere casual observation. "At times, a sense of loneliness creeps in, and one can't help but feel the need for another's support. Wouldn't you agree?" I pressed my lips together, sensing a gentle flutter against my neck. "Indeed, I believe it's time for me to confide in someone I hold in high regard." I spoke, my gaze averted, concentrating instead on the way the fabric slipped through my fingers as I rinsed it. However, he wasn't precisely engaging in conversation. It was evident in the way his eyes lingered on me, in the inflection of his voice, in the palpable tension that hung in the air around us. Nevertheless, I erred. I allowed the lather of soap to envelop my hands as the water flowed continuously, carrying away the burden of that suggestion lingering in the atmosphere. "Now that you're here, father-in-law, I'll seize the moment to head to your room and gather your clothes for a wash," I remarked with an air of ease, my hands dancing over the fabric of the apron. He glanced upward at once, as though my words had cast a shadow over him. No, as you might imagine, he released a swift laugh, yet he was undeniably anxious. "I believe I ought to contribute in some way, particularly regarding my own matters." I observed him with a sense of unease as he gradually blended in, though his physique revealed an almost undetectable strain. He ran his fingers through his hair in a nonchalant manner, yet his gaze appeared to assess time, measuring each second with meticulous accuracy. "As you prepare to embark on the task of washing your clothes, allow me to fetch it for you. Today, I tidy up my room," he remarked with a smile that aimed for lightness, though his hands rubbed together as if seeking to dispel an underlying worry. A smile tugged at the corners of my lips, for I understood all too well the reason I wished for him to remain outside his room. The vision of the girl who had accompanied him earlier struck my thoughts like a flash of lightning. He lingered within, perhaps anticipating his return, pondering whether anyone had caught sight of her. Instead, "If it wouldn't be too much trouble, could you prepare a coffee for me?" he murmured gently, as though attempting to shift my focus. I chuckled quietly, feigning ignorance to his subtle move. "Well, then I shall delve into that," I responded, pivoting gracefully. Uncertain of my own motivations, I found myself walking with an exaggerated elegance, my hips swaying in a rhythm that felt almost too fluid, the fabric of my skirt gliding over my skin in a way that heightened my awareness of every step. Perhaps it was the pivotal moment of the scenario, realizing he was ensnared between his strategy and my own. Or perhaps it was merely the assurance that I possessed my own as well. From the kitchen door, I sensed his gaze upon me, scrutinizing each movement with a blend of unease and something deeper. Something that stirred within me profoundly, akin to the faint reverberation of an impending tempest. As I made my way to the kitchen, my bare feet brushed against the cool ceramic floor, a refreshing contrast to the warmth surrounding me. Suddenly, the main door swung open, ushering in a wave of dense air, thick with the scent of the heated pavement and the distant smoke from passing cars. I came to a halt, parched. It was my husband, arriving with his shirt creased, his collar sagging, his tie askew, and an expression that seemed distant, as if he had just emerged from a battle he had no desire to recount. He ambled along, his feet shuffling against the floor, his expression a blend of defeat and simmering anger. A frown creased my brow, an instinct stirring within me, alerting me to the presence of something amiss. "Darling, What transpired with you?" I inquired in a hushed tone, as though the cacophony surrounding us might shatter it further. "What brings you here?" looking as though you've just faced a reprimand. He let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders drooping, and turned to me with eyes that sparkled, those very eyes that once held the promise of entire worlds. He pressed his lips together, as though the act of speaking would exact a toll on him. With a trace of bitterness lacing his voice, he finally uttered the words, reflecting, "It would have been better if they had merely scolded me. Instead, they dismissed me entirely." The impact of his words struck my heart like a frigid stone. "Alas, my dear." "It can't be," I muttered, my hand instinctively rising to cover my mouth. "However, there's no need for concern. Your father has extended an invitation for you to join his company." Immediately after I completed the sentence, I noticed the tension in his jaw. He regarded me with an unsettling blend of irritation and wounded pride, as though the mere suggestion of that possibility pained him deeply. "You know, I don't always want to rely on my father," he said, his voice a blend of firmness and fatigue. A thick silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by the rhythmic tic-tac of the aged wall clock and the faint melody of a bird singing outside the window. He raised his hand to his forehead, a gesture of someone reluctant to prolong the exchange. With a murmured request, he added, "Just bring me something to drink and take it to the room." I composed myself, refraining from any dispute, for I understood that in such a state, every word would be in vain. I made my way to the kitchen, and as I squeezed lemons into a glass of cold water mixed with sugar, a playful smile crept across my face. "There echoes his lament, within the intricate web that envelopes you. So, what's your plan for getting her out of the house?" The laughter lingered, caught in my throat, as I envisioned the instant my father-in-law would come to grips with the tempest approaching him. I grasped the glass of lemonade and stepped into the room, filled with laughter, pondering the notion that often, minor transgressions yield significant repercussions. The room lay shrouded in darkness, its corners obscured, save for the faint glow that seeped through the parted curtain. "Come on, darling, take a moment to rest," I murmured softly, my hand gently resting on his chest. "Allow me to assist you in removing your shoes." He exhaled deeply, a silent expression of his burden, and collapsed onto the bed, his form curving as though the entirety of existence had pressed down upon him. His shoulders remained taut, his gaze locked onto the ceiling, adrift in thoughts that were not mine to share. I knelt beside him, gently loosening the laces of his shoes, acutely aware of the warmth radiating from his feet after the ordeal he had endured. I cast the shoes aside with a muted thud against the carpet and nestled beside him, resting my head on his arm, yearning for the comfort of his presence to ease his burden, if only just a fraction. "Darling," I whispered, allowing my fingers to glide softly across his chest. "I understand that you may not feel as well as we suggest, but how about I offer you a gentle massage? I believe it will offer you some assistance." A slow blink and a sigh were all I received in response, conveying that the last thing I desired was conversation. Even so, I inclined slightly closer, allowing my lips to brush against his ear. "And I don't know," I whispered with a hint of mischief, "perhaps now that you have a moment to spare, we can finally share what we've been longing for these past 2 months. You know, darling, that I have a playful side in that regard." I found myself yearning for a smile, however faint, or perhaps a knowing glance that spoke of shared understanding. Yet what I found was an unexpected chill, its origins a mystery to me. My husband directed his gaze at me, his face contorted with anger, his eyes narrowing and his body language radiating clear annoyance. "Have you ever considered this?" "You lack a filler," he spat, his words sharp enough to steal my breath away. "Your gaze is filled with disdain, and it seems you are indifferent, solely focused on fulfilling your own desires." A sensation of fracture resonated within me. It wasn't merely the rejection itself, but the manner in which he expressed it, the indifference, the disdain that lingered in his tone. "It appears that the streets offer a more appealing alternative than the confines of this home." He spun around sharply, his hand darting toward the remote control in a swift motion. The television's cacophony enveloped the space, stifling my words, my disappointment, my anger. I remained there in quietude, gazing at his back, sensing the oppressive weight of the distance that had abruptly turned intolerable. Text, I am at a loss for your behavior, my dear, I whispered at the conclusion, a tightness in my throat, but I believe this is not how you should treat me. He remained silent, his fingers dancing over the remote, flipping through channels as though each click could somehow wipe away my existence, my longing, my suffering. Are you curious to discover the conclusion of this tale? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I extend my heartfelt gratitude for your attentive ear and the precious moments you've shared with my stories. As we part ways, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and activate the bell, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if you enjoyed what you experienced. A warm embrace from your friend Lucy. Until we meet again.